and welcome to the DIY Photo Organising podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo management. I am Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Photos in Order. Hello there, how are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Very good. So today we are answering a question that was asked by one of our lovely Facebook followers, and she had a question about slides, and we have recently seen that same or similar question actually popping up all over the place, so we thought it might be a good one to answer in a specific episode. We have talked about slides here and there in a variety of different episodes, but not that specifically. So her question was, I've got a couple of boxes with slides in the garage from my parents, and I don't have the money to have them all scanned. What do I do? So, Fiona, what should she do?
All right.
Let's start.
So to start with, there's a few things you can do, and I think the first thing is, if it's possible, to declutter. So if you've got a larger amount of the slides, then maybe scanning a smaller selection of them is an option to reduce cost, rather than having every single one of them, digitized. So the way you would do that, obviously, is you need to look at them. So maybe borrow, if you can, a slide projector or hire one. And that might be an option, because then you can at least go through each of them and just do a pile for yes and a pile for no as far as what you're going to digitize. So that's one option. So declutter like we would with our photos. You can do that with your slides. And then just scan the best ones that you think. And again, go back to your reasons to why, what you're doing. If we've been talking more about reducing down our collection to, if we're cataloging or documenting our 100 best photos or something like that, or just to add to our collection, or if you're creating a book or something like that. It depends on what your why is and what you're doing. So that could also help to reduce the cost of digitizing these as well. What are some of the other things that we could look at, Chantal?
Yeah, so definitely the minimizing, and then, have a think about whether you would do it yourself or outsource the scanning. Now, at first, you might be thinking like, oh, outsourcing is way too expensive. I can't afford that. And that was part of the question, I can't afford to have them all scanned. But that's the main point, is you don't have to scan them all. Find the best of the best, and maybe that's only going to be, maybe you end up with a dozen. And then it becomes much more affordable to outsource that. And also what I like to often suggest to clients with projects like that, it's usually somebody who has sort of inherited those slides or keeps them for their parents or whatever. And oftentimes, their siblings, their other relatives. And I always suggest, talk to the other people in your family, and everyone can chip in and pay a little bit, and then it becomes more affordable for everyone, and you can share it with the wider family and they'll love it. So that's another way to save cost.
Definitely,
yeah. And look, check out locally whether there might be a local photo organizer that can help you. Camera stores also offer scanning services oftentimes. Just Google, locally, or ask in your local Facebook group or something whether somebody can recommend somebody to help you out with that. And what should they do, Fiona, if they decide to do it yourself?
So if you're going to do it yourself, you could do, our advice would be to just have a look at the quality of what you're going to get. So there's a few different scanners out there that you can buy, things that you can get a little cartridge that you put the slides in, and then you can do it yourself and plug it into your computer. And even if you found something that has been used before, and you could buy something secondhand if you only have your own photos to do, or you might buy something new, and then once you've done your own slides, you can then, you know, resell it to somebody else that's looking at doing this. So there's definitely different creative ways to go about this if you're going to do it yourself. There are apps that you can get for scanning slides, and look, it's definitely not something that we would recommend as a quality option. So just look at that. I definitely, from a preservation point of view, is to get something with a higher quality than something like that. But there are options out there, and it definitely doesn't have to be a very costly thing. I mean, if you do get to declutter that selection first, you might only, like Chantal said, it might be, you know, a few, however, 10% of what you had, or 20% of what you had, compared to like a whole big pile of them. So, if you've got an option to have a look at the slides beforehand, that could also reduce your cost. So,
absolutely,
yeah, and there's some precious, I've seen some amazing photos in slides, and they're often things that we haven't looked at for a long time. So it's so worth going through that process and just biting the bullet and saying, okay, I'm going to tackle this somehow, and just pick one of those options. And you can pick up these portable ones that you do yourself, relatively cheaply if you're going to, and then you just take the time and do it yourself if you don't want to outsource it. There's some great options out there. So it's definitely worth a good Google search and getting that set up. So or try and cut down the collection and then have somebody else do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just out of interest, have you tried one of those little machines that you just mentioned?
I have. I've helped a client recently set one up, actually.
Oh.
And it came up. I mean, look, I use a high quality digital camera when I'm doing my scanning, and the quality is definitely a higher quality than what the machine is doing, but it is definitely better than the little app that they had used.
Yes, okay.
Like 10 times, 100 times better, probably, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
So it was definitely worth it. But yeah, worth it. It was just on a Windows setup and little Epson. So yeah, it was fine. Okay. It was good. Yeah, it did. It did the job. Yeah. It really did, and it's exactly what they were doing, because they had a very clear project in mind. It was a family book that they were doing, and they had a few hundred. And it was definitely worth it. So
and that's the thing. Also, I love scanning slides because you, as you said, you find those little treasures.
Oh, they're great! I love it. And often the colours are really good. They've been preserved well.
Yes,
which is just beautiful, because they haven't, well, depending on how they've been stored, which we're about to talk about, but they really can come up beautifully.
And it's not difficult. You can totally do that. It takes time. I find that the time aspect, that's what it takes. It takes time, but it's not hard as such. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that terribly expensive. So, we hope that this helps our listener a bit. But we also want to touch on something that was actually not really part of the question, but because she mentioned it, that she's got the boxes in the garage. And as photo organisers, we're like, no. So where should you actually store slides or photos and negatives in general? Because it's sort of the same for all of these things.
That's right, exactly. Because, I mean, obviously a garage or an attic or a basement, there's no temperature control in those kinds of things. And the risk is in having a variety of temperature, the exposure to dust and
Mm,
to dampness and things like that.
mm,
So we just want you to be aware that, ideally we want to have a stable temperature, in a dark place. And there are some great quality archival storage options and boxes and or sleeves or
mm,
carousels and things like that, depending on the number of slides that you have. So just be aware of
mm,
the environment that you're storing these
mm,
beautiful items in.
mm. Usually oftentimes it's sort of in the middle of the house. That's not a bad place.
Yep.
In a cupboard or wardrobe somewhere sort of in the middle of the house seems to be quite stable and
Yes.
dust free and all that. So yeah, but try not to keep them in the garage. They will
Yes. Or
last a
the
lot
attic.
longer. Yeah, yeah, on
Or
the
the basement.
basement. Yeah, no. So that's
Definitely.
just a little side remark that something
Yeah.
we've picked up in that question. But look, it's the same for so many people. We hear that time and time again, and also you gotta be real. Sometimes that is the only place you can keep them. And then,
Mm.
just take all the possible precautions that you can to keep them as safe as possible. Maybe double up put the container into a container to
Yep.
have some extra protection. Put maybe a little silicone gel bag into the box so that it doesn't get too humid, things like that. So, take some extra steps because sometimes it is what it is and you can't change it
Mm.
for whatever
Yep.
reason. So be it. But yeah, then just, pay extra attention to how you store them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Good. Wonderful. Well, we hope
Okay.
that helps. I think that will, but the slides definitely pop it on your list as something to do.
Mm.
And, if cost is a barrier for you, then hopefully that's given you some ideas to do that. So you can keep it on your list of stuff to do with your
Mm-hmm.
photos at some time.
Mm. Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for
Um,
joining us on this episode. And as always, we would love to hear from you. If you've got any other questions that we can answer, we'd love to be able to tackle those for you. So just hop over to any of our social channels and leave us a review or a question. And also remember to have a look through any of the courses that we've got on our website that might be available that could be of interest for you to learn a little bit more in-depth
mm-hmm.
information.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us. I am Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I am Chantal from Photos in Order. Thanks again for tuning in today and thanks for the question. And happy photo organizing and scanning and sorting and all that goes with it. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.